Tom Verducci, the great baseball writer from Sports Illustrated, also works for the MLB Network and Fox. He's in Arizona with the Dodgers. Tom, is this the day that Bryce Harper finally signs?
I will say this is the week, Dan. It could be the day. I get the sense that it might not be, but I do think Bryce Harper wants to get himself in camp and not too late. And I think we're at the end game. Let's put it that way. I think it's a matter of days.
I was wondering, and Bob Nightingale said this to us, 6 weeks ago. He said, no, it's a done deal. He's going to Philadelphia. I got the feeling Scott Boras, Bryce Harper's agent, got the deal, or at least got a number that he could go and shop around. And he's been shopping for quite some time, but he's coming back to what would be maybe close to the original deal. What do you think of that thought process?
I do think there's a little bit of truth to that. Listen, we knew where the market started when the Nationals made that offer at the end of the season, $300 over 10 years, right? I mean, there was a lot of deferred money in that, so it wasn't a true $300 in present-day value. But you got a sense of where it was going to go. I always thought the idea someone was going to sign him for a short-term contract for a high AAV was ludicrous. Bryce and Scott Boras basically have really scheduled this since the time he was 16 years old in terms of hitting free agency at 26, right? And I do think there's a little bit of Philly bidding against itself, a little bit of that J.D. Martinez in Boston last year. And getting into camp is really the soft deadline to get it finally done. I think what's happening here is Scott wants to make sure he gets this above the 325 that Stanton got from the Marlins. That's the largest contract ever given out in baseball history. I'm sure he'd love to break that. I'm not sure if Philadelphia is going to get there, but there does come a point where you say, hey, 310 or 315, it's not too bad. Let's get camp.
If you were the commissioner and you could place Bryce Harper in a place for the good of the game, where would you place him?
I would put him in L.A. or New York, Dodgers or the Yankees. I mean, I just saw something where he was rated. There was a sport marketing company. It rated him the 13th most marketable athlete in the world. Aaron Judge was the only baseball player ahead of him on that list. And there is something about Bryce Harper, I think, that's appealing no matter what market he plays in, but why not maximize that kind of exposure? I mean, Dan, you know it's rare that you get a baseball player like Bryce who can walk down the street of virtually any city in this country and people know who he is. I think Aaron Judge is that way, and I think Bryce is that way, and that may be it. Yeah. As much as I love Mike Trout, I think he can get away pretty anonymously with walking down most streets in this country. Bryce has got that it factor, there's no question. So to answer your question, I'd go big market.
Are the Padres, speaking of market size, are they all in on Manny Machado?
Yeah, they are. They like him. You know, I think it makes sense, Dan. They have the number one farm system in baseball. The owner there, Ron Fowler, has had the team for 6 years. He has yet to field a winning team. He is yet to have any position player start the All-Star game or get an MVP vote or get a Cy Young vote. Basically, they haven't been a relevant team. And I think there's a point where you have to go, listen, we're ready to win, close to being ready to win. Making a commitment to someone like Machado makes a lot of sense. They have good position players, mostly pitching that's coming up. But I do think it's a situation where you're going to sign a guy for 8 to 9 years. Your window is right around the corner. Don't wait till the window opens up. Make sure you can get the window open a little sooner by getting someone like Machado. They've met him twice. You know, A.J. Preller, the general manager, flew from the West Coast to Miami. Now, if you know A.J., it's not really a big deal because he never sleeps and he has more frequent flyer miles than anybody I know. That's just the way he runs. But when you have that second visit, person-to-person, fly cross-country to sit down with Manny in Miami, that told me they're very serious.
You're there with the Dodgers in spring training. What's the biggest question that has to be answered with this team?
There's not a whole lot of questions, actually. I thought the Pollock signing really completed this team. Dan, I think on paper they're the best team in the National League. And I don't say that because they went, to the World Series 2 years in a row. They are incredibly deep. You want to ask, nitpick anything, I would say Corey Seager's health. Yeah. I mean, we see him back and he's in uniform. And all right, he's back, he's playing, he's Corey Seager. But that's 2 major surgeries he had, the Tommy John surgery on the throwing arm and the hip surgery as well. I just got to feel you got to give this guy time. I'm talking about half of a season. Even if he's out there, I don't think he's going to be an impact player right away. But so far, at least, they're saying the signs are good. He's on track to be their opening day. But, man, I think this is a team that has more depth than anybody else. They can basically lose anybody on their roster and cover for it really well.
And is that why they weren't involved in the Machado or Bryce Harper sweepstakes?
Yes. You look since Andrew Friedman got that team, and, he has gone all in on depth more so than the top of the roster. He's not anybody who believes in the so-called stars and scrubs kind of setup where you spend a lot of money at the top of your roster and you kind of piece together the back half of it. In the last 4 years, he's used 52 players, at least 52 players every year. I mean, it's just incredible what they go through. And I think what you're looking at now, he hasn't stepped out really. I think other than the Kershaw extension, the Jansen contract was the most money he spent. So in terms of going out and getting big free agents, he hasn't been in that $100 million, $200 million range. I just don't believe he believes in that, and their farm system is so good that they can play this depth game. So, yeah, I mean, listen, look at their attendance too, Dan.
Yeah.
6 years in a row they've won that division, drawing $3 million. Not a crying need to go out there and get a superstar name.
If we talk in a week, Bryce Harper is where and Manny Machado is where?
I think Bryce is in Philadelphia, and I have not ruled out the Yankees on Machado. I think if Manny wants to take a lesser contract, I believe his heart is in New York. And the Yankees, I think, are playing it smartly to get him on their terms. But I do think the money in Chicago with the White Sox or San Diego is going to be so good. I'm going to put him in San Diego because I think when push comes to shove, most of these guys are going to sign for the money.
Any chance Tim Tebow starts the season in the majors with the Mets?
No, there's no chance he starts the season with the Mets. But I think he's going to be there before the end of the year. The only thing, Dan, I don't know if you've seen the video of him camp, and I haven't been in Mets camp yet. It looks like he's even stronger and bigger this year. To me, he's gone back to looking like a football player playing baseball. I'm not sure that's a good thing. I mean, we know he's like the world's hardest worker. But I thought he looked a little better in terms of athleticism and smoothness as a baseball player last year than this year. I think he has to be careful with how big he actually gets.
And he's going to get married, so he's going to let himself go. So, he's...
He's not letting himself go. I'm not saying that.
I know.
That dude is a brick house.
Tom, thank you. I appreciate your time.
You got it, Dan.
That's Tom Verducci, senior baseball writer at Sports Illustrated, also contributes to Fox and the MLB network there.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.